Committee on Intelligence, Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell of California. Thank you very much for being on the show this morning.
Thank you, Mika. Good morning, gang.
There's a lot of investigations going on, and a lot will be borne out later. But from Donald Trump Jr., the news with him, what do you think is the most damaging or concerning revelation?
His own words. He acknowledged and validated the emails in the meetings. And so when you go through the who, what, when, where, and why, who, it's the most senior principals of the campaign. What, they're receiving information that's damaging to Hillary Clinton that would have been hacked. Where, at Trump Tower, a floor below where the president was sitting. When, just before Russia released the emails, just before the convention, just before Carter Page travels over to Moscow, and why, to cheat for an election to help his dad. I mean, it's damaging at every level. It actually reminds me when you go to the eye doctor for a vision test and they show you a lens that either makes the picture clearer or blurrier, and each piece of evidence here makes the picture clearer. It looks like they were working with the Russians.
Mark Halperin.
Congressman, on the Senate side, there seems to be a fair amount of confidence on your Democratic colleagues there that the Senate Republicans are now committed to get to the bottom of all of this. Do you have the same level of confidence in the House Republicans and the committee who are running this investigation?
Yes, Mike Conaway has steered us back in the right course. We are interviewing witnesses as we go through this week, and we've done so in the past weeks. And so obviously there are new individuals based on what we're learning who we want to bring in. And as long as we show progress and we're independent and have credibility, I think that's a good thing.
Casey on.
Congressman Swalwell, there have been some questions here about what that is coming out into the public domain is already part of the body of knowledge that congressional investigators or Bob Mueller, the special prosecutor, have available to them. I'm not asking you to reveal classified information, but can you give us a sense of how much new you are learning every day from the news and how much you have to bite your tongue to not tell us additional things that the committees already know?
Yeah, it also makes it hard for me at home when my wife says, wait, did you already know that? Actually, as we receive this information, the way I see it is, to me and to many people, it's not shocking. It's not bizarre. It fits the picture. Shocking and bizarre would have been if they were meeting with Australians. But they were meeting with Russians who they had personal, political, and financial relationships with. And so, again, it fits the picture of all of the other evidence that we've put forward, most of it in the publicly available Intelligence Community Report.
Congressman, as a member of the House Intelligence Committee, I assume you have a certain level of security clearance to listen and hear and sit in on some of the hearings that you sit in on. So if you were to sit in on a meeting with someone who came in from Russia, an attorney who came in from Russia, and you sat in a room and listened, and supposedly they had allegedly some information that would affect the American political system, and you chose not to share this information or report this meeting to other people, members of the committee or whatever, what would happen to your security clearance?
Yeah, I would very likely, I bet, be removed from the committee for having an undisclosed meeting with a foreign national. Again, when you go through the spectrum of foreign nationals, there are those who are our allies, like really close allies, like the Brits, like the Canadians, and then there are those who are just not our friend. And when you receive something from Russia, you are in the area of taking information from someone who's not our friend. I think most people, whether you have a background in politics or a background in business, know that and would have passed this along to the FBI, as was done back in during the Bush-Gore debate, if you remember. The Gore team was given information, background information, illegally obtained about candidate Bush, and they passed that along to the FBI. That's what reasonable people do.
Congressman, it's Willie Geist. I want to run past you the two defenses given last night by Donald Trump Jr. of taking this meeting and see if they compel you in any way, or at least what you think about it. The first one was, we were naive. We're new to politics. We've never done this before. I thought this was part of the Oppo research process. I wanted to suss out some of these theories that he'd read about online and heard in other media about Hillary Clinton and Russia. Wanted to get information on that. Number two is, it was a nothing meeting. He said it wasn't worth reporting. It wasn't even worth telling my father about, who was the candidate at the time, because we walked in there, it was advertised as some big intel meeting about Hillary Clinton. It just didn't happen. It was more about adoption than anything else. What do you make of each of those arguments?
Yeah, ignorance is not a defense, especially for a high-level executive like Donald Trump Jr. Look, you're playing in the majors now. You're running for president of the United States. The pitches come faster. The strike zone is a little bit different, and so you can't, plead that you didn't know what you were getting into. Also, as far as the meeting was not significant, this person came with an interpreter. I think all of us, if we think back over the last year, you could probably remember the number of meetings you had with somebody who brought an interpreter to the meeting. Also, Russia became a very hot issue over the course of the next few months. They knew that it was a big deal, and the president and others on his team consistently said, never met with Russians, never had collusion. They said that refrain over and over and over again, and all the while this meeting had taken place and was not disclosed.
Mark Halperin, I want to ask you really quickly, Mark Halperin, has it sunk into Republicans, or do they just keep moving forward? Has it sunk into Republicans on the Hill that they have been lied to by the Trump administration, by members of the Trump administration, over and over and over and over and over again, about never meeting with the Russians, never during the campaign?
They have become the best compartmentalizers since Bill Clinton in holding that thought in their head and feeling it this week as much as I've heard them express it, and yet still grinding through the legislative process and having lots of interactions with the administration trying to move the agenda forward. But the president's behavior on health care and all of this Russia stuff has left the relationships largely in a very tenuous position, even amongst their biggest defenders. There's no doubt that.
What's his state, the most important relationship on the Hill? What is his state? What's the relationship with Mitch McConnell? What is Mitch McConnell's view from what you can report on behind the scenes? What have you heard Mitch McConnell's view of Donald Trump is at present?
It's funny because one of the president's tweets this morning was a tweet supportive of Mitch McConnell. McConnell wants to get stuff done, and he and Paul Ryan, although unlike each other in some ways, are, as I understand it, both compartmentalizing fully. They could talk and sometimes do talk privately, shaking their head, chapter and verse, particularly on the Russia stuff and the White House's lack of a smooth operation in dealing with these issues, but at the same time having lots of interactions with the White House in trying to figure out how to solve health care, the debt ceiling, the budget, defense authorization. There's just too much to do. And again, you can call it cynical or partisan, or you can simply say they're dealing with the reality of their lives that is similar to what they dealt with in the campaign when they were not enthusiastic supporters of the president.
Well,
this is the reality of their life. I'll just say one more thing, and this goes to the Ted Cruz issue. Donald Trump, for all of his political frailty right now, has easily the biggest political movement within the Republican Party behind him, and every member of Congress knows that.
And Casey Hunt, this reminds me so much of the 1990s, where if I was down in the House gym or in the House dining room, Democrats would be, as we say in Northwest Florida, dog cussing Bill Clinton, calling him a liar, calling him a scumbag, saying that they would never let him around their daughters or their wives, saying he was a dog, and trashing him nonstop. And then would go up on the House floor and they would defend him. And then they'd come down and then they would trash him and say he's a horrible human being, a disgrace to the democracy. But it was like, how do you do that? I couldn't figure out how they did that. And by the way, this didn't start with Monica. This started well back before Monica. Some of his most public defenders were the very people that said he's just a liar. You can't trust anything that he says to your face. And yet in public, they were the strongest defenders of Bill Clinton. It seems that now the shoe is on the other foot, and Republicans are doing the same thing for this man. So is this all for health care? Are they going to get a health care bill done?
Well, first of all, Joe, look, what these lawmakers say in public when they're asked about Donald Trump is very sharply disconnected from what they say in private. The number of eye rolls, the number of curse words, as you say, I mean, all of that comes out up here on Capitol Hill. This is a bunch of Republicans who still very much do not know how to grapple with this president. And behind the scenes, it's a much different dialogue, which Mark alluded to a little bit, then it is in public. I think you are absolutely right about that, and that's a phenomenon that's continuing. I think, look, on this broader question of Russia, whether or not it's going to matter, it may not matter at town halls right now. I think if Bob Mueller finds something, it is going to matter. It's going to matter a lot. If he finds nothing, then this argument that the president keeps making that the media is telling you, is lying to you, is presenting a story that's not true, that is going to be something that I think his base is going to latch onto even more. And I think that's a lot of what you're seeing, driving their decisions here. On health care, I think it's still a very open question. I think there's been a sense among some Democrats that while they love the Russia story of the last couple of days, they feel like it's distracted from a campaign to try and kill this health care bill, and they felt like they were having some success at that. So I've seen some Democrats try to kind of sound the alarm to Democrats generally, say, hey, don't let this shiny object of Russia distract you from focusing on health care policy. Republicans still have a long way to go on health care. My sense seems to be that they're more likely to wind up in a place where they have to do a bipartisan bill than they aren't right now. But I think there's still some twists and turns to come with this Republican-only language.
Casey Hunt, thank you. And member of the House Intel Committee, Congressman Eric Swalwell, thank you as well.
My
Still
pleasure.
ahead on Morning Joe, we'll hear from the president's personal lawyer after Donald Trump Jr. gives up the dirt on himself. Jay Sekulow spoke to the Today Show moments ago. We're going to play for you what he said. And law professor Jonathan Turley will join us to help break it all down next on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.